famously, in 2017, called crypto an index for money laundering. BlackRock...
And thieves.
And thieves.
Yes.
Money laundering and thieves.
Right.
You now have the biggest Bitcoin ETF. So what happened here?
You know, as the secretary said, you got to evolve and change. So,
안녕하세요, 여러분. 제니입니다. 여러분, 최근 몇 년간 글로벌 금융시장에서 가장 많이 언급되는 키워드 중 하나가 바로 자산 토큰화인데요. 아마 다들 들어보셨을 것 같습니다. 오늘 영상에서 보시겠지만 세계적으로 지금 토큰화와 스테이블 코인이라는 금융 혁신이 굉장히 발빠르게 진행이 되고 있습니다. 특히 블랙록, 현재 세계 최대 자산운용사죠. 이 블랙록의 CEO 레리 핑크도 블록체인은 금융의 미래고 모든 자산이 결국 토큰화 될 것이다라고 아주 강하게 말해오고 있는데요. 블랙록은 이미 비트코인 ETF, 이더리움 ETF까지 성공적으로 론칭을 했고요. 전통 금융기관 중에서는 가장 적극적으로 블록체인 기술을 받아들이고 있는 회사이기도 하죠. 그래서 오늘은 이 레리 핑크의 최신 인터뷰를 한번 가지고 와봤습니다. 그가 말하는 자산 토큰화의 미래, 그리고 이 기술이 금융권을 어떻게 바꿀 것인지에 대해서 살펴볼 텐데요.
You have a view that tokenization is effectively going to change finance forever.
yeah. Want me to explain?
Explain.
Okay.
먼저 이 영상을 보시기 전에 토큰화라는 개념이 생소하신 분들이 계실 수도 있어서 설명하고 넘어가 볼게요. 개념을 잘 아시는 분들은 스킵하고 영상으로 넘어가셔도 좋습니다. 여기서 말하는 자산 토큰화는 간단히 말해서 주식이나 채권, 부동산, 미술품, 지적 재산권 같은 실제 자산을 블록체인 위에다가 디지털 토큰 형태로 만드는 건데요. 즉 원래 존재하던 자산을 블록체인 위에 조각조각 디지털 쪼가리, 즉 토큰으로 바꾸는 거죠. 관심 있는 분들은 아마 조각 투자라는 말 들어보셨을 거예요. 한참 인기 있었죠. 그리고 여기서 말하는 자산은 종류가 정말 다양해질 수가 있습니다. 우리가 가장 익숙한 걸로 아파트나 건물 같은 부동산, 그리고 국채, 회사채 같은 채권, 주식, 펀드, 심지어 미술품이나 음악 저작권 같은 것들도 전부 포함할 수가 있는데요. 이런 걸 단순히 코인으로 만든다 수준은 아니고 소유권을 토큰 형태로 조각조각 쪼개서 블록체인 위에서 쉽게 관리하고 거래할 수 있게 만든다는 거죠. 좀 더 이해하시기 쉽게 부동산을 예시로 들어볼게요. 먼저 기존에 지금 우리가 아는 부동산 거래를 한번 생각해 볼게요. 예를 들어 10억짜리 아파트가 있다고 해볼게요. 이걸 우리가 사고 팔려면 매매 계약도 해야 되고 은행 대출도 실행을 해야겠죠. 그리고 이때 절차나 필요한 서류 준비가 굉장히 많아집니다. 그 다음에도 등기 이전, 중간에 부동산 중개, 은행, 법무사 등등 여러 단계에서 미들맨이 존재를 하죠. 그래서 좀 느리고 복잡하고 수수료도 많이 듭니다. 게다가 해외로의 거래는 아마 해보신 분들 아실 거예요. 훨씬 더 복잡하죠. 근데 이걸 토큰화 방식으로 바꾸게 되면요. 똑같은 10억짜리 아파트를 토큰 100만 개로 쪼갠다고 가정을 해볼게요. 그러면 토큰 한 개가 100원짜리 소유권 조각이 되는 거고요. 그리고 이 토큰이 블록체인 위에 기록되고 누가 몇 개를 갖고 있는지 같은 것들이 실시간으로 투명하게 보이게 됩니다. 그렇게 되면 10억이 없어서 투자할 수 없던 사람들도 10만 원, 100만 원 단위로 쪼개서 아파트 조각을 살 수가 있게 되겠죠. 그리고 장 마감 같은 거 없이 24시간 언제든지 거래가 가능해지고요. 국경도 상관없게 되니까 해외 투자도 쉬워지겠죠. 그리고 또 중요한 건요. 소유권 기록이 블록체인에 저장이 되니까 위조나 변조도 어렵습니다. 그리고 여기까지가 바로 부동산을 토큰화했다라는 말의 실제 의미였고요. 기존에 있던 진짜 자산의 소유권 구조를 디지털로 재설계한다는 거죠. 근데 여기서 가장 중요한 기술이 하나 더 있습니다. 바로 스마트 컨트랙트인데요. 이 스마트 컨트랙트는 간단히 말해서 조건이 충족되면 자동으로 실행되는 계약 시스템이라고 이해하시면 됩니다. 예를 들어서 아까 기존 방식에서는 거래를 할 때 매수자와 매도자 계약 서명도 필요하고 복잡한 은행 대출 실행, 법무사 등등 여러 미들맨들이 있었죠. 그리고 각각의 단계에서 사람이 직접 확인하고 승인을 해야 되는데요. 그래서 시간도 오래 걸리고 오류나 분쟁도 생길 여지가 있겠죠. 그런데 이런 토큰화 방식의 스마트 컨트랙이 적용이 되면요. 조건이 충족되면 그냥 자동 실행됩니다. 간단히 말해서 프로그래밍 코드가 짜여진 대로 중간 단계 없이 그대로 바로 실행이 되는 거죠. 예를 들어서 우리가 토큰을 사고 판다라고 하면 매수자가 돈만 전송하면 스마트 컨트랙이 자동으로 확인하고 조건이 충족되었다면 즉시 토큰 소유권이 이전되는 겁니다. 그렇게 되면 사람의 개입 없이도 거래가 1초 만에라도 완료될 수가 있겠죠. 즉 계약부터 검증, 이전, 결제 이 모든 절차가 다 코드를 코드를 통해 자동화되는 구조입니다. 지금 금융권이나 우리 현실에 존재하는 모든 절차들이 이렇게 간소화될 수 있다고 생각을 해보면 토큰화가 가져올 큰 변화를 예상해 볼 수가 있겠죠. 그리고 물론 관련해서 우리나라도 아예 손을 놓고 있는 건 아니긴 한데요. 2023년에 우리나라도 금융위에서 토큰 증권 관련 가이드라인을 발표하기도 했었습니다. 기존에 있었던 조각투자 플랫폼들도 어느 정도 제도권 안으로 끌어들이는 작업도 진행 중이고요. 방향성 자체는 토큰 증권을 제도화한다라는 쪽으로 잡혀 있는 것 같습니다. 경제 뉴스나 이메일에 자주 나오는 비즈니스 영어 표현들이 혹시 조금 어렵게 느껴지셨나요? 이런 실제 뉴스나 비즈니스 현장에서 자주 쓰이는 영어 표현들을 자신 있게 이해하고 활용하고 싶으신 분들께 실무에서 진짜 쓰이는 비즈니스 영어 강의를 추천드립니다. 제가 직접 7년 이상 영어로 실무를 했던 경험을 바탕으로 실제 현장에서 바로 쓰이는 표현들만 쏙쏙 뽑아서 쉽게 설명드리는 유일한 강의입니다. 이 강의는 성공적으로 와디즈 펀딩을 마치고 지금은 와디즈 스토어에서 계속 판매 중입니다. 경제 금융 표현들뿐 아니라 실무 비즈니스 이메일, 회의와 협상에서 쓰이는 핵심 표현들, 그리고 원어민이 자주 쓰는 비즈니스 이디엄까지 정말 꼭 알아야 할 내용만 알차게 담았습니다. 지금 바로 확인해보세요.
Good morning again, everybody. I wanted to try to bring together this morning two pioneers from two different generations, dare I say, to talk about the future of finance at a time when we are going through a remarkable shift in all of it, from the passing of the Genius Act to the surge of stablecoins, prediction markets, now talk of tokenization, as well as where we are in our economy. And Larry Fink, of course, founded BlackRock back in 1988. Today, it's the world's largest asset manager, overseeing $13.5 trillion. That's with a T, if you can believe it. Brian Armstrong founded Coinbase in 2012. Today, it is the largest crypto exchange in the U.S. and has grand ambitions to do much more. In 2021, it became the first crypto company to go public and has $500 billion in assets on its platform. So good morning to both of you. One of the reasons I wanted to put you together is you historically, over the years, did not agree with each other at all about this world of crypto, if I dare say. You obviously were a proponent from the beginning. I think we met about a year or two after you began this effort. Larry, you were, though, on the other end of it, even on this stage in the past. You famously, in 2017, called crypto an index for money laundering. BlackRock...
And thieves.
And thieves.
Yes.
Money laundering and thieves.
Right.
You now have the biggest Bitcoin ETF. So what happened here?
You know, as the secretary said, you got to evolve and change. So, so I did say that. I think I said that in Washington, sitting next to Jamie Dimon. But during COVID, when we had a little more time on your hand, we weren't traveling around the world, I actually took it upon myself to visit and talk to a lot of people who were advocates of it. I wanted to understand, what am I missing? Why do I have that belief? And so I was testing myself like I do in many other things. And around 2021, 22, I began to evolve those views. Those statements was not about crypto. Those statements were specifically about Bitcoin. So let me be clear too. But I see a big, large use case for Bitcoin, and I still do today. And so, you know, this is one thing that I get excited about. I have very strong views, but that doesn't mean I'm not wrong. But by having strong views, you have to test yourself and ask yourself. And, you know, in my role, I see, you know, thousands of clients a year. I have, you know, governmental leaders, and we have these conversations, and my thought process always evolves. And this is a very glaring public example of a big shift in my opinions.
자, 이번 영상은 세계 최대 자산운용사 블랙록의 창업자인 레리 핑크와 미국 최대 암호화폐 거래소 코인베이스 CEO죠. 브라이언 암스트롱이 나누는 대화인데요. 여기서 재밌는 점은요. 이 둘이 몇 년 전만 해도 완전히 의견이 반대였다는 점입니다.
One of the reasons I wanted to put you together is you historically, over the years, did not agree with each other at all about this world of crypto, if I dare say.
한 명은 크립토 완전 찬성파고 한 명은 회의론자였는데요. 그런데 지금은 같은 무대에서 한 목소리로 토큰화와 비트코인의 미래에 대해 말하고 있습니다. 개인적으로는 이런 장면 자체가 진짜 앞으로 금융 판도의 변화를 상징하는 것 같기도 합니다.
You famously, in 2017, called crypto an index for money laundering. BlackRock
And thieves.
and thieves.
Yes.
Money laundering and thieves.
Right.
You now have the biggest Bitcoin ETF. So what happened here?
You know, as the secretary said, you got to evolve and change. So,
2017년에 레리 핑크는 비트코인은 돈 세탁 지수라는 아주 회의론자적인 발언을 했는데요. 사실 당시에는 많은 사람들의 눈에도 비트코인이 정상적인 금융자산으로 보이기가 좀 어려운 시기였었죠. 근데 지금은 입장이 완전히 바뀌었습니다.
I want to understand, what am I missing? Why do I have that belief? And so I was testing myself like I do in many other things. And so around 2021, 22, I began to evolve those views.
What am I missing? 이 말은 내가 놓치고 있는 게 뭘까? 라는 말이죠. 레리 핑크가 스스로 관련자들을 만나고 다니면서 비트코인은 사라지지 않을 구조적 수요가 있는 것 같다라는 결론을 내렸다고 했는데요. 그리고 토큰화와 관련해서도 현재 금융에서의 구조적인 문제는 미들맨이 너무 많고 정산 과정이 너무 느리다라는 건데 토큰화를 통해 이걸 빠르고 쉽게 만들 수 있다고 말하고 있습니다.
How much, though, and Brian, you can speak to this, do you think that folks in the legacy or traditional industry didn't either get it, want to promote it, want to be part of it because they were scared?
Yeah, well, this is the classic innovator's dilemma, right? Anytime you have a new technology come around, everybody who's an incumbent has to decide, do we want to embrace it or do we want to fight against it? And in some of these larger organizations, it's kind of funny, actually, because there'll be a part of the organization, like their lobbying team in D.C., is actually fighting against it, kind of trying to do regulatory capture. But the innovation arm of the company is actually embracing it. And for many of the largest banks now, we're actually powering, pilots with them doing stable coins and custody and trading and these kinds of things. And once in a while, we run into their lobbyists in DC, and they're kind of trying to curtail it. And so, I think it's like any company. You have to embrace change and be on the frontier. It's not unique to crypto.
Is there any chance in your mind at all that Warren Buffett is right? He and Charlie Munger used to call it rat poison and say, eventually it'll go to zero. It just might take a while.
But they're talking specifically about Bitcoin.
They're talking about Bitcoin. But you offer a Bitcoin ETF, so you can speak to this.
Yeah, there's no chance I don't think that's going to happen at this point. I mean, there's something that happens from a psychology point of view as we all age and, we grew up in a certain environment and we're shaped by the experiences we had. And I think for Charlie and Warren, they grew up in an environment of America preeminence and the dollar was everything and how dare you question it. And, we're in a world now where democracies around the world are trying to figure out how to curb deficit spending. And, Bitcoin is kind of this new digital gold. People are going to it in times of uncertainty. And so it's tough for them to contemplate a world that is more decentralized and running on the internet.
Okay, let me ask you a different question, Larry, because you just wrote a piece in The Economist about tokenization. And I think that tokenization, some people here will know it well, some people will not, so maybe you can help level set. But I think you have a view that tokenization is effectively going to change finance forever.
Yeah. Want to explain?
Explain.
Okay. There's so much conversation going on about AI and how AI is going to be reshaping the world. There's not enough conversation about how technology is going to be reshaping the financial services area too, and the need for democratization, as Secretary Bessent talked about the democratization of investing in America. There are slews of middlemen in the whole financial services area. We have elongated settlements, elongated processes. If we could digitize every asset, so if we could digitize all stocks and bonds and have it more seamless going from a digital wallet of cash or stable coin into equities or bonds through, in most categories, through an ETF, it will reduce the friction costs, the transaction costs, and it allows a much more free flow. So there's $4.1 trillion of money in digital wallets globally, sitting in stable coins mostly. And can you now, and right now, if they wanted to go into a bond or stock or have a real estate transaction, they have to take the money out of the digital wallet into a traditional wallet and have all those commissions and fees and all that stuff. So the whole idea of tokenization of all assets, including real estate ultimately, is to just reduce huge friction costs, making investing easier, simpler. You could, as the secretary was talking about this one account, you could do this all through your app, and it's going to allow a more, I would say, a free-flowing process of investing.
Brian, if all of this happens, how does the finance industry change? Would you short all the credit card companies, for example? Because invariably...
That's the digitization of a dollar.
Well, that's the digitization. I mean, we can also get into stablecoins, which is the other piece of this, which is in some cases required for all of this. We didn't really talk to the Treasury Secretary about it, but underlying all of this has to be lots of treasuries, which a lot of the banks, one of the reasons I think banks have been frustrated or anxious about some of this has been the idea that there's going to be a flight of capital effectively out of the banks that's going to go to effectively support the stablecoin business, which ultimately will support in large part some of the transactional issues and potentially even some of the tokenization projects.
Well, in that case, I think that's just the banks trying to protect their profit margin. I mean, they should have to pay rewards and higher rates to their own customers. And I think they're trying to put their thumb on the scale of regulatory capture, essentially, to prevent crypto from doing that. But my prediction is actually the banks are going to start, we're already seeing this actually, they're going to be increasingly embracing stablecoins. And my guess is that in a year or two, they'll come back and say, actually, we want to be able to pay interest and yield on stablecoins in our own companies. And so it goes back to that innovator's dilemma situation. I mean, the best banks are leaning into this as an opportunity, and the ones who are fighting it are going to get left behind.
I would say as a country, we're late.
We're late.
Yeah.
We're late. So
Who's ahead of us?
India and Brazil. So this is the biggest issue. We are a successful nation. So much of the foundation of our success has been the role of the capital markets. And this, if you think about how the U.S. economy was able to restabilize itself faster after the great financial recession, is because of the role of the capital markets. Now, the Secretary was talking about the role of private credit, but it was really the capital markets. And we are now starting to see in Brazil and in India a whole transformation of a digital economy. And they've digitized their currency. Now, you even have now credit card purchases on the pipe in Brazil itself, the PIX. And so what I am worried about, we're not moving fast enough. And, and so I didn't put this in the article because, I didn't want to be that vivid on this. But this is one of my big fundamental issues. We need to move faster. We need to move faster as a country, even in AI. I mean, you haven't asked the question. When people say, is there an AI bubble? I ask, well, if we don't continue to spend on this, and that means we're going to have some failures and some success stories, but if we don't spend enough faster in AI and digitization and tokenization, other countries are going to beat us.
So you think, by the way, I'll ask the AI question then. Do you think we're in an AI bubble, and do you think the economics of this are all going to make sense? If we were sitting here all together 5 years from now, will we say that we vastly overspent?
Look, a number of the hyperscaler CEOs, and I've had this various conversation, they're not certain if they're overspending or underspending right now, but that what they're certain is and they're seeing it right now, most hyperscalers are short compute. There's not enough happening, the amount of demand for this.
Right.
That being said, the timing of this build-out may underperform their investment criteria, but they're certain that the demand will be there. This is why I love a capitalistic market. I'm not here to suggest there's not going to be some, headline blow-ups. I mean, there are going to be some huge winners and huge failures. I mean, it gets to this economy. But I would say there are going to be just incredible winners.
Brian, let me connect this back to tokenization, because one of the things that we're seeing is there's an effort now to tokenize private companies, a lot of private companies in the AI space that are not public. They don't have the same disclosures that you have, but people are going to eventually get access to some of this stuff. And some of this might ultimately, by the way, end up, right, you're looking at me askance, Larry Fink.
Yeah, I haven't heard this one.
You haven't heard this one?
No.
There's a bunch of companies that are now being, Robinhood and others have tried to, are effectively trying to tokenize private companies so that you could sell pieces of those private companies to the public without the same disclosures. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Well, in that case, I think they had some foot faults because you have to do it with the permission of the company, right? So I don't think that approach worked very well for them. But if you just zoom out for a minute and say, okay, these companies are staying private longer, right? Sarbanes-Oxley and all these things made it more difficult to go public. The amount of demand for capital in these private companies is just going to keep growing and growing. And there's so much money in crypto. How can crypto update capital formation just like it's updated every other part of the financial services area? So there's a big investment that we're making in how to update how to update capital formation and make it easier for private companies to raise money, but we want to do it with the permission of those companies.
Ultimately, do you want to compete with Larry? Do you guys think that you're competing with each other? Because you've talked about broadening your offerings far beyond crypto.
No, I don't think so. In fact, we're a great partner of theirs on their ETF.
Right.
We're powering, I think, more than 80% of the ETFs for crypto in terms of custody and trading. And as there's an effort to tokenize their funds, Coinbase is well positioned to be the leader in just tokenization of every asset. I mean, we've done that with stablecoins. You can look at it happening now in various parts of the world with stocks. It should be happening with every fund. And what we want to do is actually market their products to our customers. That the $500 billion of assets that you mentioned for retail and institutional, we want to put those products in front of our customers. So I think we'll work well together.
자, 그럼 이제 금융회사들은 어떻게 되냐? 카드 회사들은 다 망하는 거냐라고 질문을 했더니요.
The best banks are leaning into this as an opportunity, and the ones who are fighting it are going to get left behind.
결국은 은행들도 스테이블 코인을 채택하게 될 것이고 이런 변화에 맞서는 은행은 도태되고 받아들이는 은행은 성장할 거라고 말했죠. 이제는 예금은행의 시대에서 정말 디지털 지갑의 시대로 변할 거다라는 건데요. 정말 엄청난 변화인 것 같습니다.
I would say as a country, we're late.
We're late.
Yeah.
We're late. So
Who's ahead of us?
India and Brazil.
이미 인도와 브라질은 국가 차원에서 토큰화와 디지털화 단계에 돌입했는데 미국은 혁신 속도가 너무 느리다라고 말하고 있습니다. 그러면서 AI, 토큰화 경쟁에서도 뒤처질 수 있다고 꽤 강하게 경고를 했는데요. 근데 저는 사실 이렇게 금융권에서 혁신을 논할 수 있는 환경 자체가 참 부러운 것 같습니다. 자, 오늘 영상도 재밌으셨다면 좋아요와 구독 부탁드립니다. 감사합니다.